That's what they're
which
calling
now
it,
takes
right?
the form of a committee resolution.
Yes. So the TWG report, not to be confused again, just to tell everyone, and because it's really confusing. And so the TWG resolution is now called basically the TWG recommendation is now called the committee resolution,
which
right?
they are now voting on.
Yeah.
So the committee resolution, as written by the TWG, is for the rejection.
Yes.
Of
So
the
if you
franchise.
vote yes, you're voting to actually reject the franchise. And if you vote no, you're voting to give ABS a chance, basically, just to keep things
Yeah.
simple. Now, no vote will be complete without a quorum. And so we have been discussing numbers, and the numbers are in flux. Every time I read an article or see or watch TV or listen to the radio, sometimes the numbers are moving, right? So right now, we have the real quorum because it's actually happening right now. We can see in the split screen the tallying of votes either via Viber, via Zoom, or physical presence. And how are we on the quorum?
Well, the quorum requires a 5% of the members. So clearly, we have a quorum here. Kasi as of last count kanina, the Secretariat found that there were 85 members present. That includes 46 regular members of the Franchise Committee and 39 ex-officio members. So that's a total of 85. Kailangan mo naman majority. So half of that is 42.5. So you simply need 43 votes for any side to win.
For any side to win. So right now, we haven't really. Actually, the proceedings just started again. It was scheduled for 1
Kind
p.m.
of late.
It was
an hour late.
I think a little bit over an hour late, right? So
It
again,
was-
let's. Ed, I know you're fond of your scenarios, and we did tackle this
I'm fond of my
yesterday.
scenarios.
No, everyone now is fond of scenarios. We don't know what's going to happen, although I think people have a pretty good idea. So let's run through the scenarios again really quickly. The first scenario is, of course, not the best case scenario for ABS-CBN, which is they're not going to pass through this committee level.
Now, we've talked to our reporter, and our reporter has told us that the franchise committee members and leaders have told them that there's an appeal process that can be availed of. They can file a motion for reconsideration. It's not that clear, though,
Yeah.
what the parameters are or what the rules are
For the appeal
for the appeals
process.
process. I suppose they'll throw it back to the committee members to vote on if the appeal is to be considered. But you know, it'll take a great deal of huffing and puffing for a legislator to change his vote.
Yes, and then parang it would be also kind of strange for them to change their vote. So
Not unless
it
something marvelously
happens in the next couple of
surreal
weeks.
or real happens in the next few days. So it could also be political dangers for these legislators to just change their minds, just like that. So that's one option. That's the appeal process or a motion for consideration. The other option is for somebody else to file
A fresh bill.
another franchise.
Which would take even longer, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about huffing and puffing for an appeal,
Because you're back to square one.
filing a fresh franchise, yeah.
And
would
then
take
you
some
have SONA coming up. And once you're done with SONA, then Congress
We'll be busy with budgets
sits
for
down
next
for the
year.
budget.
Yeah. And of course, with all the things happening right now, budgets are really like a big thing that still as early as last month, people are already
Yeah.
deliberating
Because
budgets
you're
for
looking
next
at a
year.
post-pandemic budget that's supposed to bring back the economy.
Exactly. So again, how are we on the Senate? I mean, the Senate, of course, is on standby because they're
Yeah,
not
they
sure
cannot do
whether or
anything.
not it will clear the House and all
So
franchise
that is
commission-
the other scenario, assuming that the franchise bill passes this committee, it goes to the House plenary, and then if approved by the plenary, it goes to the Senate. Again, committee level and then plenary level, and then you have a BICAM, assuming that there's something to reconcile, and then you go to the president, who gets the option to veto.
So it looks like a really, really uphill road up ahead for ABS-CBN.
This is actually just the first step in a long, tortuous
process.
Process.
Legislation. That's right, the first step. And again, as we are already familiar with, sometimes these things really take time. They can draw it out, or they can speed it
And
up.
you can see people watching the sidelines.
I think that's from the ABS-CBN newsroom. Yeah,
That's the newsroom of
Yes, I'm now
ABS-CBN.
familiar with how their newsroom looks like from yesterday's reports. So on the left-hand side of your screen, under the screen where Ed and I are appearing right now, you're seeing live pictures from the ABS-CBN newsroom, and we can see everybody there glued to the screens. Meanwhile, on the bigger screen on the right-hand side, we can
That's the
see
secretariat with the members of the House leadership and the committee leadership.
And this is how votes now are being casted, and they're not usually they
Because
just
most
raise
of them
their
are
hands.
on Zoom.
Most of them are on Zoom. I think a couple of people also, a couple of congressmen rather, are present, or quite a lot, I think, compared to the last couple of months under the pandemic. Also, another thing we were actually discussing with our reporter, Manlos Baños, who's there at the Batasan, is whether or not people or congressmen would explain their votes.
And it's likely that people would want to explain their votes.
I think it's likely that they would, but how they would explain it, again, is something I would actually really, really want to hear.
Now, something interesting to talk about a while ago when the TWG chairperson, Deputy Speaker Pablo John Garcia, read out the findings of the TWG. It's a three-member TWG. A bit of background. The TWG is composed of three members, of course. That's Garcia as the chairman. Xavier Romualdo is the second member. They're both from the majority, and then you have Stella Kimbo, who is from the minority.
Yep.
We understand it was Stella Kimbo from the minority who voted against the report.
Correct.
But
Meaning
she was
in
overruled.
favor
Yeah.
of ABS-CBN's franchise renewal bid. Again, there is an inverse proportion going on here. So voting no means actually supporting ABS, and voting yes means not supporting ABS. So very confusing there. So don't get confused if
Later
you're
on
watching
when
right now. Yeah, later
when
on during the
when you hear
voting.
them read out their votes. Now, the TWG, and we quote, determined the likely consensus was to disapprove the application. However, there was Congressman Carlos Zárate stood up on the floor and raised a valid question. He said, Congressman Zárate said that if there was consultation done by the technical working group, how did they come to a determination as to the consensus when they were never consulted?
They were not, yeah, and they're also, and another strange thing about this, Ed, is we did not hear about this TWG being in existence. Now, whether or not it was just not revealed to us, the point remains that I was also shocked finding out that there is a TWG that's going to give a recommendation, and then I found out that it's only a three-man party.
Well, I understand that the committees are empowered to create TWGs as they see fit,
Yes. And we
which
have.
is something that happened in this case. However, it's not that often that
does
that these
happen.
these committees avail of a TWG. But what is interesting, though, is that the committee created a TWG composed also of members of the committee, the same members who also, like
are
the other
voting.
members, listen to the entire proceedings in the last 12 hearings. So they're basically on the same boat.
Yeah. So it's a
And
little
then
strange. So they're not like independent directors like in a company
No.
where you have independent directors.
The same people who listen to the hearings
Yeah.
and who will cast their votes are also members of the TWG.
That is not very routine, yeah?
Now, we understand from Congressman Zarate's statement that the report by the TWG is 40 pages long, concluding more than 100 hours of hearings. So Zarate was saying, if it was a consultation, we were not consulted. Now, TWG Chairperson Garcia explained that yes, not all members were consulted.
But
so
some
that's an
were.
admission.
Is that the,
Yeah.
is that the implication?
But Garcia said, and we quote, the inclinations of a lot of members could be determined from the conduct during the hearings. So apparently they just,
Assumed.
divined it from
Yeah.
the conduct during the hearings.
Based on maybe how they questioned things or what their
Yes.
comments were.
Or I suppose in the case of Zarate, Zarate spoke for
Or ABS-CBN.
for the franchise renewal, and so perhaps they assumed that he is for.
Yeah. But that's kind of weird, right? In any kind of situation, we always say never assume, but it's really hard when we don't really have enough information and things keep changing on the fly. So today, things we're not sure about is whether or not first, well, one thing we did determine is the quorum, at least. One thing we
That
haven't
one we're sure
determined.
about.
Yeah, that's one thing we're sure about, which is good. One thing we're not sure about is whether or not they will be explaining their votes. Will all of them be explaining their votes, or just some of them as they see fit or as they want, or maybe they volunteered to? I guess we can safely assume some of them will, as that is how things usually play out, but nothing has been usual with this in this specific situation.
Yeah. But just to continue with Congressman Garcia, just to be fair to him, he said that the consensus was arrived. The consensus by the TWG was arrived at after talking to leaders of blocks or groups.
Okay.
In the House. Anyway, Congressman Garcia says that the vote that they are doing right now will determine if the consensus is correct anyway. So he does have a point. It is a recommendation. The recommendation is their perception of how the voting will go.
Yep.
But in the end, the voting will be
It will happen as it
validate
happens.
or invalidate
The
the
recommendation.
recommendation. So in the end, it still will go to a vote, which is what is happening now.
Which begs the
Si
question.
Congressman Defensor was also said that besides the minority was also represented in the TWG in the presence of Stella Kimbo.
Yes, that is true. But there was earlier, of course, they already said that Stella Kimbo does not support the committee resolution, which
Yeah.
means she does support the renewal of ABS-CBN's.
In other words, she was voted down.
Yes.
Okay, maybe we could also recap a bit of do a bit of a recap of what happened yesterday. We had the summations yesterday. We had Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano.
He went ahead.
Yes, but he had some memorable statements to make.
Quotable quotes.
Yeah, and he did have some memorable statements to make. Some of these statements are actually quite ambitious and I suppose in some ways acceptable to a lot of people. For example,
Run us through with some of the best,
Yeah.
the best ones from yesterday.
But I would say ambitious more than anything. Speaker Cayetano spoke about the dangers of the oligarchy. It's quite a popular word these past few years. The speaker said that we will agree on the basic premise that big business conjoined with commercial media should not be allowed to engage in partisan politics. On the surface, that does sound like it makes sense. Now, how to put that in place may be another question. By wielding the power to protect its own interests and meddle in elections and surreptitiously support certain candidates. And then he said, we agree how we must deal with the larger issue of big business and media's participation and partisanship in the political process. So he's taken a step back and looked at the bigger picture.
He has taken
of, a much bigger picture of the involvement of big business and media in politics. And that raises quite a lot of questions.
And it's a very fair point that he raised.
A very fair point.
It's a very fair point that he raised. Okay, looks like action is happening again. I think Carlos Zarate is now saying something, Minority Leader. Let's listen in.
I register my negative vote on the resolution.
Noted po. So ngayon po, bibigyan po natin ulit ng time ang Secretariat na bilangin po yung no votes naman sa Zoom and sa text and sa email and sa lahat pang ibang platforms.
All right, we have Mean Los Baños right now on the line. She is at the Batasang Pambansa with the latest. Mean, tell us what's going on over there. Mean?
Maybe Mean's voting.
Yes.
There.
So
There
yes,
she
yes,
is.
yes. Bok and Sean,
Yeah.
lawmakers went straight to the voting this afternoon on the franchise bid of ABS-CBN. This was after the technical working group, which was formed just yesterday, came out with a 40-page recommendation. This was the basis for the committee's resolution denying the franchise application of ABS-CBN. There are a total of 85 congressmen present either virtually or physically for today's voting on the franchise bid of ABS-CBN. All 46 members of the House Committee on Legislative Franchises were present, either physical or online, while 39 ex-official members were also present to vote. TW Chairman, Deputy Speaker Pablo John Garcia said that in the meeting of the group, it was determined that the likely consensus of the committee was to disapprove the application of ABS-CBN's franchise. Garcia said the process involved intense debate among members of the TWG. Deputy Minority Leader Carlo Zarate questioned why they were not consulted by the TWG before coming out with recommendations. He said he wanted to know how exhaustive the discussions were at the TWG before they came out with a 40-page report. But Garcia said, while it is true that not all members were consulted by the TWG, there was the inclination of the members could already be determined during the hearings and questions they raised. The consensus was also arrived after consultations with leaders of the bloc. Franchises Committee Chairman Franz Alvarez meanwhile introduced the committee resolution denying the franchise application of ABS-CBN Corporation. So, Bok and Sean, the members will now vote on whether to adopt the reso or not. A yes vote would mean a denial of franchise for ABS-CBN, while a no vote would mean a member is disagreeing with the reso and would mean they would like to grant franchise for ABS-CBN. As of now, they're still counting the votes for the said reso, but Congressmen Zarate and Abante already registered their negative vote for the resolution. So this means Congressmen Zarate and Abante would like to grant ABS-CBN franchise. Bok and Sean?
Bok, yung botohan ngayon, this is only the committee pa lang or sabay na yan ng committee and yung ex-officio?
Sabay, Bok.
Sabay-sabay
These
na.
are all, because there are already 85 members.
Yeah.
In total, while 46 members of the committee, 39 ex-official members. So majority talaga andito na. So they're going to vote. We will know by today whether they will grant the franchise of ABS-CBN or not.
Yeah.
What else can we expect, Mean? Are we earlier during your report before this all started, you were saying we're not sure if people will be explaining their vote. Congressmen rather would be explaining their vote. Are they? Would you know by now if they are going to explain, or some of them at least will be given the chance to?
We are not sure. We're just going by the flow, Sean, whether they're going to be allowed to explain their votes. But because remember, there are 85 of them who will be voting today, so it might take time if they will have to, or if they will be allowed to explain their vote one by one. We are also waiting, Sean, if the TWG will be presenting the 40-page report that they were able to craft since they were formed yesterday, because some congressmen like Deputy Minority Leader Zarate is actually questioning what was the basis of this 40-page report, because this 40-page report from the TWG was the basis for the committee report denying the franchise renewal for ABS-CBN. So we don't know if they will be reporting the content of this 40-page recommendation by the TWG, Sean.
Right, so am I getting it right? The TWG was formed only yesterday. That means that 40-page report was worked on overnight. Am I getting that right?
Yes. Apparently, yes. After yesterday's submission of arguments by the congressmen from both camps, from the pro and anti-ABS-CBN renewal of franchise, Congressman Alvarez, the chairman of the Legislative Franchises Committee, decided to form a TWG made up of 3 congressmen, Garcia, Kimbo, and the other one, I'm sorry, I forgot. But there are 3 congressmen who are members of this TWG, and they worked on it, I guess, overnight or yesterday until this morning. And as Congressman Garcia said, this was a product of intense debate before they were able to come up with a 40-page report, Sean.
Well, man, I'm not sure if you have an answer to this. I'll take a stab at it, though. Do we know if the committee report or the TWG report is only supposed to represent what the TWG believes to be the inclination of the members, or whether it deals with the facts of the case? In other words, the merits of the case. Is this a report based on what the group thinks is how the committee will vote, or is it a judgment or an assessment of the merits?
I think it's both, Bok, because if I heard it right, TWG Chairman Deputy Speaker Pablo Garcia said that it was a product of both what they thought was the inclination of the majority of the committee and the product of the summation of arguments, which was done yesterday. And while Congressman Zarate was questioning why they were not consulted upon the crafting of this TWG report, that's when Congressman Pablo Garcia said it's because they cannot afford to consult everyone anymore, and they actually consider the inclination of the other members. Anyway, Bok, the TWG is made up of 2 majority members and 1 minority member, who is Marikina City Representative Estela Kimbo. So Congressman Mike Defensor is saying that the TWG is actually well represented by the majority and minority congressmen.
Right, but Mayan, would the fact that, like Rep. Zarate said, that they were not consulted at all, could this be a problem moving forward with other congressmen in the committee and ex-official members as well in the leadership? Could this possibly be a problem for them moving forward, the fact that they were not consulted? And can this be used as an issue?
I don't have a concrete answer to that, Sean, but the TWG is saying that even if they weren't able to consult all the members while they were crafting the TWG report, they actually based the report, aside from the inclination of the members, they also base it on the summation of arguments yesterday. Remember that Congressman Zarate was the one who did the summation for the pro-franchise renewal for ABS-CBN. So it's kind of implied that Representative Garcia is saying that even if we did not consult you last night or yesterday, we actually put into consideration the summation that was given by Congressman Zarate yesterday, and all the congressmen who are supporting the franchise renewal of ABS-CBN.
Men, I'll get a bit ahead of the cart. In case the committee rejects the franchise or votes yes to the committee report, have any of the congressmen for the franchise indicated if they want to file an appeal? Is it the congressmen who have to file the appeal, or is it the ABS-CBN?
Okay. I have no word yet if there are any member of the committee who would be willing to file a motion for reconsideration. But let's just be clear on the rules, Bok, because I remember I told you yesterday that any member of the committee could actually file a motion for reconsideration once the franchise of ABS-CBN is rejected. I based it on the rules this morning. I read the rules this morning, but apparently only a member who voted with the majority could actually apply for a motion for reconsideration. Yes. So kind of weird, right? But yes. Meaning a member who voted against the franchise of ABS-CBN and who kind of changed his or her mind will be the only one allowed to file the motion for reconsideration. So
how would that be determined, though, Mean? Would you know? Did it say?
It depends. Any of the members, depending on who will be the ones voting against the franchise of ABS-CBN right now. So from that list, any congressman from the list of those who voted against the franchise of ABS-CBN will have the authority, or will be allowed to file the motion for reconsideration. Exactly.
Thanks for that bit of information. So in other
Thanks
words,
for reading up on
only
that,
only the congressmen who reject the franchise can file an appeal if they change their mind.
Yes, they would have to change it.
Yes, because I have to say that, Bok, because I remember I told you yesterday any member of the committee could actually file a motion for reconsideration. But when I read the rules this morning, it was clearly stated there that only the members who voted with the majority, so meaning the winning vote, those who voted whatever, either a yes or a no, will be the only ones who will be allowed to file a motion for
May,
reconsideration.
sorry, we'll have to cut you off. We're,
Yes,
we're
yes,
going
yes,
back to the
yes.
voting. Thanks.
Sure, okay.
The resolution to deny ABS-CBN's franchise application is hereby adopted. Pursuant to Section 49 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, all House bills and House resolutions relative to the grant or renewal of the franchise application of ABS-CBN Corporation are hereby laid on the table. The committee secretary is hereby directed to inform all the authors of the bills and resolutions of the decision of the committee in writing, and as far as practicable, though electronic mail within 5 days stating the reasons therefore.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Kong Jonathan.
point of clarification lang po. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin ng laid on the table, Mr. Chair?
Comsec. Committee secretary.
Para sir na, ano na siya, kill.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Ibig sabihin po, itong usapin patungkol sa pagre-renew ng application ng ABS-CBN ay hindi lang po isinantabi. Ito po ay tinapos na ngayong araw na ito, Mr. Chair. Tama po ba?
That is correct. Kong Defensor.
Mr. Chair, in parliamentary courtesy, when a bill is being approved, we don't necessarily vote no because we just lay it on the table just to make it stay in the committee. But technically, Mr. Chair, for a franchise application, the effect would be to kill the application of the franchise. But it is still in our rules laid on the table. And Mr. Chair, as this is a historic moment for the House of Representatives and of course for the Filipino nation, I move that all members, Mr. Chair, who voted for the adoption of the committee resolution be made as co-authors. I so move, Mr. Chair.
There is a motion to include all members of the committee who voted for the adoption of the committee resolution denying the franchise application of ABS-CBN Corporation. Any second?
I second, Mr. Chair.
Is there any objection?
Who voted, not present. I'm sorry. I withdraw my objection.
Without any objections, motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, I move
Jonathan.
that the committee adopt the other findings and recommendations contained in the technical working group report, Mr. Chair.
There is a motion to adopt the other findings and recommendations contained in the TWG report. Any second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. Chair,
Kong Defensor.
for purposes of transparency, I move that we authorize the chairman of the Committee on Legislative Franchises to release the TWG report and the adopted committee resolution to the public and other committees of the House. I so move, Mr. Chair.
There is a motion. Any second?
I second, Mr. Chair.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, mukha pong tapos na ang usapin ngayong araw na ito. Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair,
Kong Defensor.
let me, before I second the motion, let me just congratulate you, also those who voted no. The members of the minority are all here. Those who have worked in for the 11 hearings, the 12 hearings, Mr. Chair. Let me congratulate you, Mr. Chairman, again, and the TWG group. I second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn,
Yes.
I just want to be clarified if this committee report will still be.
I just want to be clarified if this committee report will still be presented to the plenary, not anymore.
Hindi na po.
This is it, no? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Kong Garin.
Mr. Chair, we are in receipt of some text from fellow members from the minority who would like to insert explanation of their vote.
Yes,
Just a
pwede
moment.
po isubmit na lang po sa committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As there are no other matters to discuss and there's a motion to adjourn, duly seconded, hearing is adjourned.
Okay, wow, okay, Bok, that was fast.
Yeah, it's a 3:15 and Congress has killed the franchise application of ABS-CBN through a vote in favor of the technical working group committee resolution rejecting the
The renewal.
franchise application renewal.
Right, so on the right-hand side of our screen, we can see the little inset. These are scenes, live scenes from the ABS-CBN newsroom. We can see all the employees of the newsroom right now, although they have masks on, looking very defeated. Meanwhile, the Congress committee has adjourned. The Committee on Legislative
after
Franchises
congratulating
has adjourned.
themselves for their jobs, they decided to adjourn.
Although we should note that I think they have agreed to release that resolution, the technical working group's report. I'm not sure when we will get that, but it should be out soon. I think everybody wants to read those 40 pages that happened apparently overnight.
Okay, so let's look at the numbers. The vote came down to this. 70 congressmen voted in favor of the resolution to reject the franchise. 11 congressmen voted against the resolution to reject the franchise. In other words, they voted for ABS-CBN's franchise. 2 congressmen inhibited and 2 congressmen abstained.
And there you have it. This, of course, in just layman's terms, kills the franchise bid of ABS-CBN. So now we look to the recourses book. It's a little bit heavy right now, but there are still options, as we were discussing with Men earlier. One is, of course, for someone to file a motion for reconsideration.
But as we heard from Men a while ago, it's
a slippery slope as well.
Yeah, it's not likely to happen if you look at how things have gone. Just to review what Mian said kanina, di ba? For an appeal or for a motion for reconsideration to process, that has to be filed by somebody who voted with the majority. In other words, one of the 70 congressmen who voted to kill the ABS-CBN franchise
has to backflip.
Has to back out and change his mind and file an appeal. It cannot be from those who voted
already
for
support
the
them
franchise.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be someone who right now voted to not support ABS-CBN, to change his or her mind and go against the flow and backflip and say that they do support ABS-CBN. Now, the other only
Important
option...
detail from Men Los-Baños.
Yes,
I
very,
mean,
very...
If we didn't know that, we would have thought na anybody could file an appeal.
Correct. But no,
Parang nasa korte ka, di ba?
Kahit sino pwede, no? Pero hindi, dito, it's very specific pala. So that's, nakasaad yan sa rules.
Sa rules ng committee.
Ng House, yeah. So wala tayong magagawa dyan. The other option, Bok, is what you've been saying, file a fresh bid. But that would take ages. So one would take someone to backflip against the flow, and the other one would take a lot of time. We have Ryan Ang on the phone right now. Ryan, what do you have for us? Where are you? What's going on?
Ryan, saan ka?
Sir, dito ako sa newsroom.
Ng ABS?
Yes, yes.
Ng ABS? Oh, kumusta dyan?
Medyo malungkot na nung binasa yung result ng vote. Malungkot, medyo naiiyak. Kahit na nakamask na makikita mo, naluluwa yung mga mata. And medyo kamahimik ng konti sa newsroom. Nag-uusap-usap yung iba, kinukonsol yung ibang mga kasamahan nila.
Ryan, nung binasa ni committee chairman yung boto, yung mismong boto, yung moment na binasa niya yung boto, yung 70 versus 11, ano yung nakita at narinig mo?
Nakita ko yung mga empleyado dito, medyo parang maluwa-luwa yung mga mata nila. Parang hindi sila makapaniwala. And yung ibang reporter, nakita ko rin parang nag-ayakapan na sila. Medyo malungkot talaga. And lalo silang saktan nung sinabi yung katagang kill. Yung sinabi nga yung word na kill, yung late on the table, na ang kahulugan daw ay kill. Parang sobra naman daw.
Okay, Ryan, apart from all the I'm sure it's 90%, 99% emotion over there right now, pero may usap-usapan ba nung plano? Anong magyayari bukas, next week, dyan sa newsroom?
Actually, wala pa, hindi pa namin nakakausap si Ms. Jing Reyes, pero sabi nung ilang empleyado kanina dito, ang sabi nila ay kung ano raw yung nasabi ng ABS na gawin nila, ayun ang gagawin nila.
Okay, so right now, no clear plans yet, no, kung anong next steps na gagawin based on what you've heard from in there?
Yes, Sean, wala pang malinaw na plano, pero mamaya magkakaroon yata sila ng vigil sa labas, dito sa labas ng ABS-CBN compound sa May Sardinas Guerra Avenue.
What will that vigil be calling for, Ryan?
tatanong natin mamaya kung ano tungkol saan to, pero malamang parang mabigyan ng hustisya yung naging desisyon o siguro ay humihingi sila ng apela sa naging desisyon dun sa voting nga kanina na parang pagpatay na rin nga dun sa pag-renew ng prangkisa ng ABS-CBN.
Ryan, tuloy ba yung newscast mamaya?
As of now, wala pa akong narinig. Pero meron sila line up kanina dito eh. Mukhang tuloy naman yung newscast nila, pero online pa rin siguro sila na mag-air ng kanilang newscast.
So for at least the rest of the day, business as usual pa rin kahit masakit for the employees, of course, of ABS-CBN.
Yes, Sean, nakikita mo dito parang tuloy pa rin yung trabaho nila. Bagamat medyo malungkot nga sila, hindi pa medyo malungkot, tuloy pa rin yung pagkatrabaho nila. And yung normal system sa loob ng newsroom.
Okay, napapagod.
Nakailang punta ka na dyan, Ryan? Kapon ba nandiyan ka rin?
Wala ako dito kahapon, Bob eh. Ngayon lang ako pumunta dito. Kanina medyo bago siguro mag 1 o'clock, bago yung hearing, medyo okay pa. Normal operation pa dito. And yun lang, yung nagbasa na ng desisyon ng botohan, doon lang parang nagbago ng gusto yung mood.
Okay, Ryan, sige, pahinga ka muna. Mukhang
Everybody needs a little bit of time to
konting
digest
hinga.
this. Maraming salamat, Ryan Ang, para sa update mula dyan sa newsroom ng ABS-CBN sa Quezon City. So again, to recap, we just went through the voting of the House Legislative Franchise Committee with the 46 members plus 39 members of the ex-officio voting members of Congress. So they voted to support the resolution that was passed at the committee level. This resolution was to kill the franchise bid of ABS-CBN for another 25 years. So basically, long story short, it's dead in the water right now, the franchise bid of ABS-CBN. Pending what will happen, we have no idea. But the vote, again, comes down to 70
versus 11.
Versus 11. So 70 not supporting ABS-CBN, 11 supporting ABS-CBN, 2 abstentions, and 2 inhibitions.
And you only needed how many votes? You only needed, each side only needed 43 votes?
43 votes.
43 votes.
For a majority sana. Right? So that didn't happen. Right now, what we're waiting for, what we can wait for, of course, apart from the next steps of the embattled network, is that committee report that we all want to see. I think this 40-page TWG report that was apparently created overnight. So there has been already a request kanina doon sa floor na sa publiko nga ang nilalaman nitong 40-page committee resolution, which is the report of the technical working group that was formed yesterday.
And it will be interesting to read that report because after 12 sessions or 12 hearings where you had the government regulators line up and be grilled, it'll be interesting to see how Congress, or this committee at least, decided on its vote. Kasi sabi nga kapon ni Congressman Marcoleta, it does not matter what is the view of the SEC or what is the opinion of the DOJ or the BI. What matters is the will of Congress.
Because that's true. All franchises emanate from Congress. Having said that, I'm Sean Yao.
I'm Ed Lingao.
We are One News.